In November of 1982, FBI investigators would arrive to a garage at 4214 Glenwood Road in Brooklyn, working on information received from a bizarre federal witness by the name of Vito John Arena. During the search, they would retrieve one brownish colored blanket, mop strings, one plastic glove, one comic newspaper, one piece of plastic material, two pink rubber gloves, one scrub brush, four work gloves, a red and white skirt, and a brown wooden handle, seemingly belonging to a knife. This walk and talk through Brooklyn is the story of why. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of NYC Crime Spot. We are on East 42nd Street. Right behind me there was Farragut Road. Now, if I had to tell you where I was, I will show you on the map, but if I had to draw a triangle of Flatbush, Flatlands, and Canarsie, I would be right smack dab in the middle of that triangle. I'll put up a picture now. And as I mentioned before, we're heading to 4214 Glenwood Road, the former garage of Broadway Freddie Denomi, the eccentric, chimpanzee-owning race car driver turned killer with the Roy Demeo crew. Here's an old sign up there, Old Dutch Brewers. Wow. So in December of 1979, Yusuf Dowd, the brother of one Khalid Dowd, would come together with the family of one Ronald Falcaro and hold a press conference, offering $10,000 to anyone who could supply information that would lead to the answers they were looking for. And the answers that they were looking for was, why did their loved ones, Ronald Falcaro and Khalid Dowd, disappear on October 12th of 1979. And we're going to the place where their demise occurred. Now, Khalid Dowd had been a man who was from Jordan, but who had a Kuwaiti citizenship. And he, along with Ronald Falcaro, were working to legally obtain cars at auctions and ship them over to Kuwait. Now, his former partner, Khalid Dowd that is, was a man by the name of Muhammad Hassan, a man who he had since distanced himself from. And Muhammad Hassan at this point had teamed up with a couple other guys, one being Ronald Ustica, a crooked Long Island auto dealer who started a company called Compass Forwarding on Rector Street in Manhattan, and he was going to use this Compass Forwarding shipping service to ship cars over to Kuwait, cars stolen as part of Roy DeMeo's Empire Boulevard operation. Now, it seems that Khalid Dowd and Muhammad Hassan ultimately didn't hit it off too well. Khalid Dowd had gotten glimpses of illicit activities going on and perhaps wanted to distance himself from that. He teamed up with Ronald Falcaro, and full disclosure, Ronald Falcaro was only 29 years old when he went missing in the early 70s. When he was about 22, 23 years old, he actually was arrested for his involvement in an auto theft ring. Ultimately, he would beat the charges on that. It was him and a few other guys. So he had been in the auto world, so he had seemingly wanted to go straight as well. Now, Khalid Dowd was having some issues. He had started to notice that some of the cars that he was desiring were becoming less and less available. And he went to the Pier 292 in Newark, New Jersey to investigate exactly what was going on with the auto industry. Why was it so hard for him to get these cars? Now, he would go there and start seeing all the cars that he wanted. All of a sudden were available on this pier, ready to be shipped to the same location that he was wanting to ship cars to. And he started investigating, thinking that, wow, this is probably stolen automobiles and somebody's got a real racket going on here. While he was looking at those stolen automobiles, writing down VIN numbers, who would show up but none other than Ronald Ustiga. Long Island's owned Ronald Ustiga. They would get into a screaming fit. He would start yelling at him, saying that he was gonna really spill the beans on this whole thing, that he knew the cars were stolen. Well, this would ultimately get back to certain people. Obviously, you could imagine who those people are. Roy Demeo and crew. Right? Let's get a look down this way, and then we're going to turn back that way. So they couldn't risk, obviously, their own operation falling apart, right? They had to figure out a way to get this guy Dowd into their presence so they could essentially take him out. Now, this is going to occur on October 12th. And let me bring you guys back to about a week and a half before this. Roy Demeo, Nino Gaggi are sitting in a car on Shore Parkway with Peter Picente, and they blow off the heads of Jimmy the Clam Eppolito and Jimmy's son, Jimmy Jr. Eppolito. And you guys know how crazy that situation turned into. Many of you do know. If you don't, look into it. This is about a week and a half before this March 12th incident in early October. I believe October 2nd or 1st. All right, that's when that happens. We're on Glenwood Road in Albany this way. And what do you know? Mr. Demeo was ready to commit another double homicide. So this would be 4 homicides within a 2-week span that Roy would be involved in. Now, why do I say double homicide? Because we know that they're looking for Khalid Dowd. Well, Khalid Dowd decides that he's also going to bring Ronald Falcaro with him. And where are they going to go? Well, word gets to Khalid Dowd that there's this guy, Freddie. He's got an auto shop on Glenwood Road. And he's got a couple of rare Chevy Caprices, you know, the ones you're looking for. The ones that you could ship to Kuwait, right? They don't have leather seats, you know, everything that you've been looking for. He's got 2 rare ones waiting for you. Khalid Dowd says, oh, that's great. Hey, Ronnie, why don't you come with me? We'll pick up these 2 rare Caprices. We'll go look at them. I hear it's a good deal. This guy Freddie's over there. This is the intel that he gets. Now, before this would occur, they actually did try to catch up to Khalid Dowd in Rockville Center, Long Island, at a hotel that he was staying at there. That plan didn't work out. So on October 12th, they would actually come down here to Glenwood Road under the auspices of getting a chance to buy some Chevy Caprices. So that big green fence right there, that is 4214 Glenwood Road. Now, a couple of individuals would testify to exactly what happened behind these brick walls here on October 12th. First, of course, Vito Arena would testify. Broadway Freddie would later bolster some of that testimony. Now, according to witness testimony, on that October 12th, Roy Demeo, along with Broadway Freddie Denomi, Joseph Testa, Anthony Center, Henry Borelli, and Vito Arena would arrive to this location and wait for Khalid Dowd to show up. They had found out earlier that he was coming with somebody else. When asked about what they would do about the other guy, according to witness testimony, Roy would say, well, we'll get rid of him too. Now, in 1982, when Vito Arena was arrested, this is one of the first things he would talk about. When he was arrested eating Chinese food out there in Port Jefferson, which is a upload that I covered on this channel. You guys can go check that out. Now, he would talk about 3 homicides that occurred, according to him, behind the walls that we're looking at right here. 1979, a gentleman by the name of John Burton, who was apparently an employee of Broadway Freddy's, was taken out behind these walls. And the 2 that I'm going to speak about now, Ronald Falcaro and Khalid Dowd. So they would arrive here They would enter behind these walls. The lights would be out. Freddy would pretend, oh shit, I gotta put the lights on. Lights on. The men inside would retrieve their guns equipped with silencers and go to work on the two gentlemen that entered inside here. Khalid Dowd would fall quick. Ronald Falcaro would make a run for the door, but he was not able to get out as big fat Vito Arena was waiting on the other side. Inside, tarps would be prepared, and the two individuals that walked in here would be taken apart via what would later be known as the Gemini method. Now in court, Arena would testify that while this was going on, when they had first taken out these two men, sorry, I gotta watch what I say on YouTube. When they had first taken the lives of these two men who went in there, Roy Demeo would look at Vito Arena and Henry Borelli and say, hey, why don't you go get us some pizza and hot dogs? Now, when Vito would talk about this in court, there was actually some jeers from the audience. Not jeers, maybe small, quiet laughter, which was reported. And then Vito would say, it's not funny. Mr. Serious himself, huh? He would place all the individuals I named at this scene. Later on, when Broadway Freddy decided to cooperate, he would also speak of this incident that happened beyond these walls, when two seemingly legitimate auto dealers entered, were shot, and their bodies taken apart right behind these walls. We'll go back across the street, take a look again, and we'll talk more about this. Now in 1986, Henry Borelli, along with Ronald Ustiga, would be found guilty for numerous auto theft crimes, as well as this crime here, double homicide, which the government said deprived these two individuals of their civil rights. However, in 1987, an old bizarre law would reverse that conviction.
January 1987. They shot through the loophole. It has taken 100 years, but the Second Circuit Court of Appeals in New York has finally caught up with the legal philosophy of Texas Judge Roy Bean. The law west of the Pecos. Bean presided over a kind of kangaroo court in his Jersey Lily saloon at Langtree, Texas. Once acquitted the murderer of a Chinese laborer on the following grounds. I have read the entire 1879 revised statutes of Texas, and there ain't a damn line here nowhere that makes it illegal to kill a Chinaman. Last Friday, the Federal Appeals Court in Manhattan threw out the convictions of two mob killers because their murder victims, who were shot to death and then cut up into pieces, had not been proven to be American citizens. The two victims, Ronald Falcaro and Khalid Dowd, were executed in a Brooklyn garage in 1979, so they would not become informants for federal prosecutors investigating a car theft ring. The accused killers, Ronald Ustiga and triggerman Henry Borelli, were convicted of federal court of conspiring to deprive the victims of their civil rights. Ustiga and Borelli were sentenced to life in prison. But there is a loophole. The civil rights law passed in 1870 provides penalties if two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any citizen in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution of the United States. The law specifically says citizen. Dowd was a Jordanian. Falcaro apparently was born on Long Island, but during his 85 trial of his killers, he was never proven to be a U.S. citizen.
So those two would get off. However, Ustiga would still have to face the stolen car charges, as well as Henry Borelli. Now, Ustiga would get out in the early 2000s. He has since passed away. Henry Borelli still sits in prison for 15 counts of the shipping of the stolen cars. 10 years per count, 150 years. Looking back at the building again. Now, Joseph Test and Anthony Center would later have to pay for this. This was a part of their convictions that sent them away for life. Of course, as many of you know, in 2024 they would both be released. In the late 90s, their lawyers would appeal their case, and this one would be appealed. Their lawyers would state that, first of all, when they were first tried for this double homicide, the judge could not come to a conclusion on a verdict. They would further state that while Vito Arena had placed them at the scene, Broadway Freddy initially had not placed them as participating in this homicide. This was, I believe, back in 1997. That appeal failed. Now, you could take that information and do with it what you want. You could say maybe they were framed for this. Maybe prosecutors convinced the witnesses to go along with something. If anybody wants to see that paperwork, I have it. I will send it over to you. But those two have since been released from prison. They went to jail. Now keep this in mind too, ladies and gentlemen, as we get one more glimpse of this building. They went to jail for numerous homicides, drug charges, extortion, not for cars. There was no car charges there. Henry Borelli, he went away for cars and he's still sitting in there. Now listen, does it take a rocket science to assume that Henry probably has numerous bodies under his belt? No, but still, he didn't go away for that. He shouldn't be in prison, especially when they let those two guys out. But we can debate about that all you want. Ladies and gentlemen, 4214 Glenwood Road, the site of the October 12th double murder of Khalid Dowd and Ronald Falcaro. Two men who visited this location and exited in numerous pieces.